Business or pleasure? It's always a difficult choice between the two. What we have to look at today is a machine that was fairly aimed at the business market. To the casual eye, this thing is boring and pale. It looks like it could do with a couple of hours on the beach to catch a suntan. This thing has, well, it doesn't shout fun, does it? But we're going to see if we can change that, turn it into a bit of a rebel and something that we can have some fun and games with. It has to be said, it's a lovely looking thing. So this is a digital Celebris FX 5133. One of the first machines I got when I started collecting retro stuff. It was in a very sorry state at the time I bought it. Probably kind of looked like this. I did have some pictures of it, though I can't for the life of me find them. It was in a state. I did buy it as a restoration project. I think it only cost about £30. I was just pleased to get a machine cheap made by such an iconic manufacturer. So some evil boss bought this for his employees and didn't want them to have any fun at all, so there must have been some onboard sound on some of these models, but here the headphone and microphone sockets are blanked out. But the case is nice. I like the sort of industrial square uniform design of the whole thing. It looks pretty snazzy. So it still has this cool sticker on top, which I had to peel off and put back on after I resprayed the thing. Made for Windows 95, so I guess that's what it came with, but compatible with Windows NT. So this thing, I took this thing right back to bare metal and used a Dremel to get all of the rust pits out of it, filled it, primed it and resprayed it, so it's come out pretty nice. I just wish I'd kept video of it. So looking round the back, you see something a bit strange about the power supply. So this was non-functional and completely rusty when I got it. That's why there's a fan on the outside. So basically what I did was I took a small form factor PSU and fitted it inside the original casing of the one that came with it that didn't work anymore. There wasn't room for the fan where it should be on the inside of the PSU, so I just stuck it on the outside like that. So I put this back together the way it was because it didn't work when I first got it. Bizarrely, it just started working, having done nothing to it. I just got out the cupboard and thought I'll see if I can figure out why this doesn't work. And it just worked, so that's why I decided to make a video about it. So you can see there's some cards. These cards came with the machine. We'll have a closer look at those later. Apart from that, we've just got the usual parallel serial ports, VGA and PS2s. So there's a little sticker on the back here. Doesn't really tell us much. I guess that's 120 watts for the power supply, and apart from that, all it really says is that it was made here in the UK. Time to take a little peek inside. So this thing has no screws, it just clips. A couple of clips on the back, a little jolt, maybe not quite as much of a jolt as that, and the thing just comes off. So yeah, I had to clean the inside of this as well, so this was all primed with grey primer. There's still telltales of bits of rust. They're a bit more obvious in some other places that we'll get to in a bit. Okay, so the insides, I'm not going to take it apart like I usually do because this has already been taken apart and been cleaned in the past. And since it just decided to start working by itself again, I'm not going to tempt fate by taking it all apart. Because if I did that and put it back together again, it probably wouldn't work anymore. Okay, so we've got a quantum fireball. This, I think, came with it, and it just sits snugly on top of the PSU with no screws again, so it's quite cool. You just kind of slide it back. It's got these little like clasp things that grip the PSU, so that's pretty easy to get out. So this hard drive still works. It's very noisy. I don't think it's got long to live. I think it's 5.5 gigabyte, but yeah, it will do for now. And with that out of the way, you can see the PSU. So this was originally a light on 100 watt thing, so it wasn't 120 watts that it said on the back of the sticker. Now you can still see some of the corrosion on this. The thing was non-working, so what I did was I got a Flex ATX PSU, just literally took it out of its Flex ATX box, made sure I had the plastic shielding and everything, and then secured it to the inside of this. And then, as I said, there was no room for the fan, so that is now on the outside of the case. So at some point I'll probably look to get the correct size PSU for this, but yeah, this worked out quite well since I couldn't find one at the time. So we've got some non-period correct SATA connectors here. Moving to the front of the case, so we've got the optical drive. This is a CD-ROM drive that I put in myself. Nice to have the jumpers all nicely documented here. So yeah, the CD-ROM's slightly non-period correct. I think this machine was made in 1996 and this one is from 1998. So not much else to see on this side of the machine. As I said, it's so easy to see what's going on. May as well put this back in. There's a floppy drive in there, which is just usual boring floppy drive. So if we hook all this back up, then we can have a look at the more interesting side of the machine on the other side of the riser. So I haven't said it yet, but you've probably guessed that this is a Socket 7 Pentium machine, 133 megahertz as it implied on the front panel. We've got 3 banks for memory here, one of which is populated with 2 8 megabyte sticks of EDO RAM. We've got the CPU underneath a big heatsink, and in front of that we've got our cache on a stick module. I think I remember buying one of these. I think it was my first machine upgrade from a 486 back in the day, was indeed to a Pentium 133. I remember buying one of these. This is a 256k stick that I just happened to have lying around. Didn't come with the machine. So yeah, this thing came with 2 expansion cards. One's just a crappy modem, which I probably won't put back in the machine. The other one's a sound card. I don't know if this is the sound card that actually came with it from the factory or not, but we'll have a little look at that in a second. So the sound card is from Diamond Multimedia DT0398. Don't know if it works. You can see there's some corrosion. Didn't bother really cleaning this card up much. But the whole machine, I think, must have been sat in a puddle of water back in the day. If you look at the contacts, I don't know, some of those look like they might have peeled away and may not possibly work anymore. The user manual for this card is freely available, which I found online. It claims all sorts of things about DOS compatibility, but everything else I've read about it says that it's just another typical PCI card that has terrible sounding FM synth and doesn't really work well with anything apart from Windows, and even then not particularly well at that either. So on some of the RAM sticks we can see that the digital branded, it only seems to be on one of them. So I don't know whether, I can't remember whether this came with one stick or whether I added a second stick or whatever, but also the cache module, that is digital branded as well. I did have this already, but just matches the system nicely, so I thought it would be good to put it in. The chipset on the motherboard comes from SIS. It's 5511/5512 chipset. 1995 this came out, and it competed against the likes of the Intel 430FX. It was a little bit slower than the competition by all accounts, but yep, that's what we've got. Bus speeds up to 66 megahertz. The onboard graphics come courtesy of S3 Trio 64 with 1 megabyte of RAM and a couple of holes for another megabyte, which I don't have to hand, unfortunately. Okay, so if we take a look up, we've seen the 3 banks for the RAM, for our EDO RAM, and then if we look up across the motherboard, we shall see it's got a strange kind of config, this machine, where the motherboard actually plugs into the riser instead of the riser plugging into the motherboard. So you can actually remove the motherboard and just slide it out sideways, a bit like some of the Apple machines, the early Apple machines, and leave everything else in place. So we've got a PCI slot at the bottom, an ISA slot at the top, and a shared PCI or ISA in the middle. So it's quite a funky setup. Like I said, I'm not going to take it apart. Underneath that big heatsink there is just a standard Pentium 133 non-MMX. Just in front of the lever here, as I take the CPU out, there is a socket for a VRM. So I don't know, I'm presuming that possibly you could plug a VRM in there and then you'd be able to deal with some dual voltage CPUs, but as things stand, this thing is only suited to 3.3 volt, both on the I/O and the core. Yeah, on this edge you can see some of the pitting that was from the rust from the puddle that it was sitting in. I just painted over the silver, you can't see it, so I didn't really finish it nicely. Okay, so it's all back together with the CPU back where it belongs. We'll fire it up and see what happens. I'm hoping that something's going to happen because I remembered, yes indeed, installing Windows 98. So That was a few weeks ago when I first realized that it was working after all. So I think this is a relatively clean install of Windows 98 from when I was messing around with it. And then we're going to see if we can apply a little bit of this and then maybe a little bit of this. Yeah, you can see I've been having fun with AI image generation. I think it's going to be the way of the future. Yeah, so once it was up and running, went into Device Manager and had a look. It's sorted itself out for some of the stuff that was on board, like the little network card that was already there. And yeah, it looks clean. No junk to clean out of here. So yeah, we're good to go and try and do some fun stuff. So at this point I did temporarily have to hook up a different CD-ROM drive. Not that I think there's a problem with the other one, it's just old and it wasn't reading some of the shitty modern discs that I've been burning stuff on. But yeah, we're going to use this Maxigamer Phoenix 4 meg Voodoo 1 card for our graphics. Should go okay with the existing S3 on board. So yeah, I don't really like these kind of risers in the middle. I don't have many machines like that. I don't like the way the cards just kind of hang there. Usually I wouldn't bother putting screws in until I'm sure that everything's exactly the way I want it to be, but with these I don't really like them hanging there like that. So I'm going to screw it in. It's a bit awkward to get to, but I'd rather have it there than just kind of flopping around. So at this point, after putting that in, I start getting these resource allocation conflicts on the motherboard. So it's IRQ conflicts on the motherboard. I couldn't figure out for the life of me what this was. It didn't seem to be causing any problems. So for sound card, I was going to put in a Sound Blaster 16, but then I decided I would go with an ESS audio drive just for a change, because I always put Sound Blaster 16s in. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. So I have to say I was a bit worried when I was putting this in, because this thing seemed temperamental with its IRQs and its conflicts it was giving. I couldn't see any conflicts inside Windows. It just kept on saying resource conflict on the motherboard. So one of the nice things about loading Windows 98, which is slightly later than this machine would have been designed for, is it recognises some of the older stuff. So it recognises the audio drive as it frantically plugs in some speakers so we can hear it. It recognised the Voodoo card, so obviously there are better drivers, but if you just want to get up and running quickly, Windows 98 knows about those things. Okay, so all we really need to do is test out the sound and then we can try out some games. Awesome. Okay, so it's all looking good. I just decided to live with that IRQ error for now, since it doesn't seem to be causing any problems. Of course, this is a bit of a challenging kind of period where you possibly would have been putting a Voodoo card in a machine like this, but with a Pentium 133, you're going to be pushed as to what games you can play, so it's strictly entry-level 3D gaming. So yeah, for Glide games, I only really had a choice between Wing Commander Prophecy and Extreme Assault. Wing Commander Prophecy is on like 4 CDs or something. Extreme Assault's on 1, so we'll go with the easy option. And yeah, this game minimum wants a DX4, but what it really wants is a Pentium 133, so it's a perfect match. And it also supports Glide, so we'll be able to test out the 3DFX card. It wants a joystick, so we'll plug one of those in and we'll see what it's like. Okay, so we'll get Extreme Assault in. Extreme Assault, if you've never seen it before, is a fairly fun, lightweight kind of helicopter, futuristic sci-fi shooter type thing, made by Blue Byte, the German company most famous for the Settlers games. So we'll get this extremely clunky quick-shot joystick. I bought this about a year ago. It was the very joystick, the same model that I bought. The first joystick I bought with my own money in about 1990 or thereabouts. My friends who I used to play head-to-head games with used to never stop taking the mickey out of me because of its slightly eccentric appearance. And once that's done, we can go and frag some helicopters, see how it looks in glorious Glide 3D.
Fuse energy.
That plays pretty well and looks pretty good. So the business machine is capable of fun stuff too. This is the kind of thing you could have loaded slyly when your boss wasn't looking, as long as you had a set of headphones on. You could get headphones with those little microphones, so it looks like you're working when really you could be fragging choppers. So that pretty much wraps it up for this video. It was just nice to get this machine out and have a little look at it and a little play with it. It's the first time I've really done it since it miraculously decided to start working again for no apparent reason. It's a nice machine to have in my collection. I can't see myself using it very much. I don't really want to upgrade it. I want to kind of keep it original. I might see if I can get that diamond sound card working again. Might even take a little look at that in a video at some point to really see if it does do all that DOS stuff it says it does. I'm pretty sure it doesn't, but who knows. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll join me for the next one next time. See you later.
Fuse energy. Ammunition for laser gun.